I had the CEO of American Airlines as a mentor of mine, and he taught me how do you organize companies. And it's not just for companies that have 200,000 employees, but it's how do you go from being a one-man show to operating as a company. This week I had several young adults reach out to me, and they were struggling with being able to grow their company and also be profitable. They're working so hard, yet no matter what they did, it was just too much and they weren't making money. At the end of the day, after a month or two of working super hard, they found their bank account wasn't growing and they were just burnt out. So today's episode in The Marketing Mechanic on how you can go from a one-man show to a company, I'm going to share with you what the CEO of American Airlines shared with me. This man, Albert Casey, he was the Postmaster General. So you can imagine all the white trucks that are everywhere. He ran the LA Times. He ran the Resolution Trust Corporation. And he, of course, ran American Airlines. And the funny thing is that there was the same framework that worked across all of these companies. And I've reflected on this over the last several decades. And I found this wisdom to be so simple and so powerful. And I think you are going to find it very specific and applicable to you. And if along the way you have a thought or it hits you in a certain way, I would love to hear about it here in the comments. So in any company that Al came and he took over as CEO, can you imagine like you were the Postmaster General in charge of like what the price of the stamps were and all the mail trucks going around, and then you become the CEO of American Airlines, a totally different business. And I said to him one time, how do you even do that? Like aircraft and fuel and flight attendants and strikes and marketing and databases and frequent flyer programs and all that kind of, he was the guy who invented that, by the way. How do you manage all that? And he said, Dennis, there's three components. There's M, O, and F. And the first one is marketing. And this is the sales and marketing is getting people to be able to buy. And where do people goof up on this? If you're an entrepreneur under $1 million, it's probably because you're trying to help everybody. And I see a lot of folks, they are a coach or they're an agency, and they say like, oh yeah, I have like 5 or 6 clients, and every one of them is different. Every one of them has a different package, a different kind of business. I tell those folks, you're running 5 different businesses. So in order for your marketing to work, it has to market to, and you've heard this, the riches are in the niches, one very particular customer type where you have one offering and you do one thing for that price point. Not 5 different packages for that one kind of customer, but one offering doing one thing for that one very specific customer. Oh, but I could do these guys and I could serve these guys and I could all, no. Focus on that one thing. And so when that's focused, the marketing is focused, and then the operations are also able to be focused. Because if you have alignment with what you are selling, so let's say you're good at selling, you're good at getting on the phone and closing them, you've learned all the techniques to be able to sell, and now that you've collected the money, you have to deliver. Well, if your operations, the way you do your stuff, SOPs, are not in alignment with the expectations of this particular customer type in a repeatable way with the repeatable service for a repeatable result, then you don't generate ROI for that underlying customer, and then they want a refund or they cancel. If you're providing services like your digital marketing agency, they're going to cancel. That's why the churn rate on digital marketing agencies is 25% per month, not per year. And it's only higher because of AI, right? For all kinds of reasons. So the alignment here needs to be whatever you're achieving through these SOPs, and when you can deliver the ROI, because sometimes you win and sometimes it's a fail, right? No one wants to admit that they fail, but it happens, Thankfully, if you're not like, you're not manufacturing a car and people get in an accident, that would be really bad. But if you look at what is it that's working, let's say you are providing professional services. What's driving the most ROI? Let's say that you are a roofer and you say, yeah, we do commercial and we do residential and we do insurance and warranty stuff and we do, well, okay. But what's the biggest thing that's most repeatable, that's most profitable, that you really want to focus in? Oh, well, 85% of our business is residential. Okay, cool. Well, let's do that. And it's all in this one neighborhood because of the relationships we have there. Like, oh, okay, cool. Well, let's zero in on that. So if there's a particular, if you do really well against a particular archetype, that generates a signal because your crews will be, or your team members or your agents, human or not, it generates proof of good things happening because you're documenting it along the way. Maybe there's a project management system. Maybe you're taking pictures. If you're out in the field, there's proof of good work that's happening. This is actually what drives your marketing. When people leave good reviews, when customers are happy, it's not like you even have to market or convince. It's not even like it's not like you even have to ask clients to refer you. They just naturally talk, right? I mean, we've done some stuff for some, let's say, in HVAC, and these HVAC guys talk, and that brings us more clients without us ever needing to cold call or run ads to like, hey, sign up for our thing. Like, we don't have to, buy a booth at the conference. Like, we don't have to do that because it's all referral. If you do good work here, that comes back into the marketing. So there's a reinforcement between doing good work, which I think is the most important thing, which drives your marketing. If you don't do good work, then you have what we call the leaky bucket or the sieve. And then these people here, usually digital marketing folks like coaches and agencies, they say, oh, well, my problem is I need more leads. No, your problem is you need to dump more water into the leaky bucket or the sieve. Your issue is you're not keeping them, right? And you don't generate credibility, or worse, you're generating a negative reputation. Like, the last person I would want to be is Josh Crouch or Lane Hook or whatever, these guys who they're good at selling, as long as people don't do the research on who these folks are, because they're real good at selling, right? They get you on the phone and all, they're a good Christian, they're a good old boy, blue collar background, yeah, go to church and all that. Yeah, but do you deliver results? And how much you charge 20 grand for a website, which can be okay, but do you deliver? Can I see what your process is? Can I talk to customers, right? So good marketing. In fact, if you have good operations, you kind of don't even need marketing, right? Kind of like Chick-fil-A doesn't need marketing because they have a good experience, right? McDonald's with their big arch, I think they're having some marketing issues, unless they're intentionally trying to clown on McDonald's, right? Maybe they'll bring Ronald McDonald back. But this is the link between marketing and operations. It requires the same SOP. And then when you have clarity here on expectations, then there's no need to re-explain and resell and invent a new model. Like, we know that plumbers, for example, for our agencies that serve plumbers, that a call running local service ads should be between $90 and $130. That's what it costs to make the phone ring. And then we know what the close rate should be. We know what the average job should be, right? We know what those need to be. So every time we get another plumber, every time HVAC growth gets another HVAC client, like, we know what the website needs to do. We know what the cost per click is. We know the structure that we can replicate, like Google Ads or whatnot, right? And same thing for you in your business. You do that one thing, like the Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich, over and over and over again. Tight operations, not a, oh, I'm a custom chef and I can make whatever you want. No, there's a menu, right? And so the menu, you have people trained on the menu, they do that, that's operations. Fewer things, tighter quality. You don't want to be the cafeteria, right? If you're opening a restaurant, you don't want to open a Golden Corral. And how many items are at a Golden Corral? Like 300 versus Chick-fil-A or, Fogo de Chao. Well, maybe they have a big salad bar, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like, focus on a couple things. So let's say you have these two working right, marketing and operations. Then the F is finance. And Al Casey called this accounting and finance. Accounting is looking backwards and finance is looking forwards. So are you making money or not? Because of refunds? Are you charging the right amount? Are you paying people the right amount? Do you need to invest in more people because it's 3 weeks? When a new customer comes in, you can't get to them for 3 weeks. That's probably not a good thing, right? Or do you need to get more AI tools in place or invest in technology or, whatever it needs to be? So from marketing to operations to finance, you're doing the work, most importantly, making the customer happy. And then, is it profitable? And what we like to see is, depending on the business, is a 20% margin. And that should be healthy. I see in the trades, most guys are at like 15%, which is tough, or less. Agency world, like digital, should be higher, of course, because of the nature of what it is. That's usually about 20%. I've seen some at 40%, but I think it's because they're overcharging, and they're also delivering less. It's like ordering remember Wendy's, like, where's the beef? You order it's like a big bun and there's like no meat inside. There's like a tiny little, like a cheddar cheese slice of meat. So like give them an actual patty, like give them, don't overcharge, but if you charge higher, make sure it's like a good piece of meat in there. That's the way I look at it, right? Make sure they're happy. And so, you want to make a decent profit, but you need to make sure that these guys are happy. And this allows you to reinvest. And what we like to see, and I learned from Al, this is not me, I'm not making any of this up, is let's put 10% back into marketing. So every dollar that comes in, let's put 10 cents back in the marketing. And now this machine starts to operate. But where then do we see problems? I see a lot of really bright entrepreneurs, especially young adults, and they love AI, they love technology, and they know AI better than their dad and better than the old people, right? Like me, I'm 51. Well, they think, well, I can just have Claude spin up this whole thing here, and I can have agents do this, and then I can say, you are a bookkeeper, you will analyze my QuickBooks and do this and that and file my taxes, and okay, great. But you still need thinking, human involvement. It could be you as a one-person show, but a human needs to be involved in each of these particular components for planning. The sum of all of this is strategy that ties all these things together with strategy. So when I see someone unable to grow to a company, it's usually because it's like being left-handed, right-handed. They're really good at sales and marketing. And what do salespeople do? They like to hang around with other salespeople. And they don't typically know people who understand the math and the numbers. And these people who are like good with the numbers, the spreadsheet, private equity people, for example, they love hanging out with other private equity people. And they wear their Patagonia vests and that kind of thing, right? And the operations people, they do their operations and they're best, just getting stuff done and not being interrupted by the salespeople who are always loud and always saying, oh, I just closed 5 deals, because you take whatever they say, divide by 3, because they're always over optimistic, right? And these guys know that. They know that these guys say that. So you need to recognize in running a company, right, so that you can work on your business instead of in your business, the E-Myth, Michael Gerber, who are the other people that I can get that can complement that as a co-founder, or I can even partner with other folks, which is a little tough because it's like, well, if I'm hiring a fractional marketing or fractional finance, then like how much of you am I really getting? Yes, I get the idea that, you take care of 10 other companies as a fractional finance guy, but and a real finance guy would be $15,000 a month, so you're only paying me $1,500 spread across 10 people. But is it really, is my business really similar enough? Which goes back to this whole issue again. But when you have these departments, marketing, operations, and finance, then you can start to look at the business overall. And then you see people like Anthony Hilb, who has a $5 million a year landscaping business, and he doesn't have to be involved in it at all. I mean, it's his face on it, it's his name on the company. But because these other components, so for example, operations is delivering the product or service. It could be sending guys out in a truck. It could be whoever, people building websites. It's a product or a service, but it's delivering what the customer paid for. And marketing is still the same thing. How is marketing different than sales and different than operations? It's because you are harvesting the content of happy customers and repurposing that into related pieces of content and running ads against it, which is what we teach here in the Marketing Mechanic, the 4-stage content factory, all of that. So when you have a win here, this is what I would say. For those of you guys who are struggling, so I see a lot of solopreneurs and they say, yeah, but I can't do all that. And it's just me and I'm busy. And this whole the irony is I'm too busy to read or to get the Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, which is a time management book. The irony, you're too busy to learn time management. I mean, isn't that the very reason why you can't, manage your time? When I say that to them, they don't understand that. I think it's hilarious. But think about this. I think that the most important signal, if you're to start anywhere, start here. Where is the, because a lot of people say, yes, but if we do this marketing, we could be $1 billion company, because look at this other $1 billion company, and they start counting all this money before, it's just way too early to start like pretending you're a billionaire and fantasizing. Like, I love optimism and all that, but start with one happy customer. Can you deliver your thing? I don't care if it's manually, I don't care if it costs you 5 times what your price is because doing it the first time is more expensive, or you don't have scale, or you had to invest in equipment, or like whatever, right? But can you do it one time? And then if you can do it one time, can you document that through an SOP? And then can you do that 10 times? And then once you've done this thing 10 times, that gives you marketing. Because now you have examples of what's working, you have stories. Now your landing pages are not just AI generated crap. Because I can't tell you how many times, I'm not going to name people, actually I can, but I won't in this one. How many people they're using AI tools just blindly, just generating stuff. Well, what if you use real experience of happy customers, raw ingredients here, then the AI could do your marketing for you if you gave it the real ingredients. Otherwise it would just like make stuff up, which humans and agents know that that's garbage. A report came out this week and it showed that it's actually very easy to be very easy to be seen by ChatGPT and the LLMs, right? They'll see your stuff, but whether they recommend you is a whole nother issue. And so there's a trust gap there, right? So that trust gap comes from real proof. If you're selling a course, it's like this girl who came to me. She said, Dennis, I heard you're like the best at lead gen and all that. Can you help me sell my course on how you can become a millionaire? I'm like, probably could. She says, what's the price? $1 million. No, I can't afford that. I can maybe pay you like $1,000 or $2,000. I said, go take your course on how to become a millionaire, then come back to me, right? She had no proof. She'd never done it. She was just repackaging what she heard Tony Robbins say, right? So start with your real proof. I don't care how good you are at selling. You already know how I feel about salespeople. No, I'm just kidding. That's a whole, like in home services, that's still important. You got to send the person out there, but they have, there's EQ and there's a human relationship, and the homeowner, they're typically, 40 plus, right? But marketing leads to operations, and then this creates earnings. It creates gross revenue. A lot of people are underpricing. I'm not saying charge more just for the sake of it, but I see a lot of folks where they charge too little because they don't account for the fact that a premium customer will pay them more. A friend of mine, one of the top Facebook ads guys in Israel, complained saying, well, a lot of my friends, he's in Tel Aviv, it's Jewish, he said, they don't even want to pay $200 a month for my services. And I said, you're talking to, there's people that will pay you $2,000 a month. There's people who pay you $20,000 a month. You're just talking to the wrong people. No, I can't raise my price because if I go from $200 a month to $300 a month, I'm going to lose all my clients. And I said, you should lose those clients. It's not even worth it. I mean, the less they pay you, the more they want. And so this guy, Avi, became a big deal because we were at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, and I said, this guy here, he's fantastic at Facebook ads, right? He started getting clients within Israel and outside, and he increased his prices, and he had better clients, right? Because he raised his price, offering the same service, but to a limited audience. I think he chose like e-commerce, but a particular kind of e-commerce, not anyone on the planet who needs Facebook ads, right? But narrow the audience, charge the right price, had a clear SOP, set clear expectations, not like, oh, now that you've hired us, you can call me 24/7 and here's my cell phone. No, that's not how this works, right? Especially like the people that they buy something from you at low ticket, like the $100 item or the $1,000 item. Now it's like, oh, I put my life savings with you. Now, every little thing I'm gonna like text you 5 times a day, and I just saw you spent $10 on ads. Is it working? I didn't get any leads. Oh, that one click didn't result in a conversion. The sky's falling. We need to have a Zoom call to talk about this. You don't want that, right? If you're a service provider, especially an agency, you don't want that. Like I had dinner this evening with Leanna Ling, and we talked about we don't like the agency business, but there's a few people we'd like to work with, and so that's good. But you understand what services, set the right expectations, that makes operations easier. that finance is good because the price is actually a barrier, because you want to, instead of a salesperson thinking, I'm going to close as much as I can. Anyone that comes in, oh, I close 80% of the deals that come in. Yeah, are you closing the right clients? Because if they're not happy, then, so it's actually, if you do things right, sales and marketing is disqualifying people. So for example, people that want to come into our AI apprentice program, we tell them up front, the price is $7,500. Some people think that's super cheap. It's one time, not per month. But here's what you have to do. And here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to chase you. We're not going to hold your hand. We're not going to explain to you. Like, some people think I'm Dennis GPT, so they can just like text me all the time. I don't need to use ChatGPT. Oh, it's Dennis. Like, no, that's not what this coaching program. We don't spoon feed you. This is what you need to do. Every Friday, you submit your MAA report on what you've done. And we expect you to sign up for your own Claude 20X Max account. And we expect you to do these different things. And if you submit your analysis, which you can use AI to do, then we will look at that and give you feedback. And if you are still stuck, you can come to office hours. We're live together. We'll look at that stuff. And this is how the program works. Oh, and if you don't have a clear goal, and if you're not serving contractors, because mainly we're working with home service businesses and helping these guys grow because we know local really well, then that's what we do. Someone came to me today saying, oh, I sell like, what are these things called? Basically like cancer cure stuff, right? So I guess it's under the realm of functional medicine, but prayer and faith and these particular supplements that do certain things which are not approved by the FDA but may work or may not, right? And they said, can we come into the program? And I said, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit exactly who we serve. You're serving contractors. Like George Palatachuk came in saying, hey, we serve roofers. I've got a SaaS company. I want to scale it. Okay, you have clients already? Do you have these other components? Can you show proof of this? Can we see how you're running the books, right? It's so funny, right? It's always these basics every time. And it's funny because then when I talk to Al or I talk to other people who you think they're a big deal, they're always talking about the basics. Like we have one person, I won't name, but they had $50,000 come in the first few months. And they thought, ta-da, wow, there's all this money. And they started paying themselves. They just took the money right off the top. And they didn't pay their expenses because they didn't see it. And meanwhile, their people weren't getting paid, right? How bad is that? So, because they thought, as you probably know, they think the top line money, the gross revenue, is all profit. No. Revenue does not equal profit. Does not equal profit. Because you have to take your revenue, subtract the expenses, have a holdback for taxes, because every year or every quarter, depending on how you do it, you have to pay taxes, right? And then you need a contingency, usually like a 10 or 20% contingency. A contingency is something that goes wrong, maybe for refunds, maybe for some unexpected thing that happens, right? Once you take all this stuff, subtract all that out, then you have a profit. But then if you're not even paying yourself, then that's not really a profit. So a private equity company looking to buy your company is going to figure out what your true profit is by putting what's called add backs. Add backs are, oh, well, you put your company car in and these other things you're claiming are company expense. No, we're gonna add that back and calculate what the true profit is, because when we buy your business, we're not going to keep paying for those things. So here's what the true profit would be, right? And those actually can help you, right? So if you don't really know what your real profit is, if you don't know really where you're going, if you don't know operationally what's costing you money, a P&L, like a lot of people don't know. Like here in finance, believe it or not, I have a finance degree. There's three components here to finance. There's three instruments. There's the balance sheet, which is your assets and liabilities, and equity, which is a subtraction. There's your P&L, which is your profit and loss, which is money in and money out. And then there's your statement of cash flows, which is starting cash and all the things that come in and out to show where the cash is flowing. So you could be profitable, but you're actually cash flow negative because of the way receivables, or because you had to invest, or you had to buy inventory, or things that cause negative short-term cash implications, for example, right? And what entrepreneur who is really good at sales and marketing because they went to a conference and they learned how to sell is going to understand the finance? How many people who are good at finance understand the day-to-day of operations and customer care and like answering the phone and like, usually the people who are good at selling tend to be a little disorganized because they're like up for the high when it's the time to shine and perform. And these people are like steady. And this goes back to like personality types. So Myers-Briggs, I really like. I like the Enneagram. I am an INTP, which makes me a good entrepreneur, but I'm also a good thinker because the I is an introvert, N is intuitive, T is thinking, P is perceiving versus F, feeling, right? And so if you know your personality type, you know the personality types of these other people, you know how you can build a team of people who are natural fits. For example, you might be the CEO, the visionary, relationships, public speaker, but you need an operator. You need someone who can manage the day-to-day details, which some people call an integrator, right? If you use the EOS system, you have an integrator, you have your level 10 meetings, there's operations that occur. And so someone who's a COO has a different approach than someone who is a CEO, and you can't be both. It's like optimizing for one is sub-optimizing for the other, right? And once you realize that, then you realize a lot of differences that occur are because of those personality types, and then because of lack of operation or a lack of structure and SOPs on how you need to operate. So I think it's fascinating. And the people I know who own multiple businesses, they look at this as like the ultimate game. Mark Cuban said that he loved business because it was a game that operated 24/7 with no timeouts. Not just because he bought and sold the Dallas Mavericks, right? I remember meeting him 30 years ago before he was a big deal. Before he even sold his broadcast.com to Yahoo. I remember like hanging out with him in Deep Ellum, Dallas in the bars. And this guy was like, he was selling computer parts. That's what he did before he became this famous billionaire TV, whatever kind of guy, right? Shark Tank thing. And he was doing this. But he was also doing this because he was reading manuals and out there and selling. Because he read the manuals, because he serviced the customers, and he called on CompUSA, and he was selling computers, keyboards and monitors and all that kind of stuff. He could do the sales and marketing because he knew it better. And then he could speak, and he knew how to build websites to promote his stuff and show what the price of the computer parts were. And he saw it was profitable. He hired other people to go out and represent different neighborhoods, different salespeople with their different account territories. He did the same thing. And this is what I learned from Al Casey. Isn't it wild? Like the same thing that works in an airline or being the postmaster general or working in a gigantic bank works in all the other sorts of businesses that we've talked about. It works in all the businesses that I'm involved in and have partial equity in, and works in your business. I'd love to know, what challenge are you having in your business? Can you pinpoint where it is? Because when you can, then it's like going to the emergency room and they do the blood and the MRI and they can figure out exactly what's wrong. You don't have to guess. It's not like, well, I'll just take these random pills and do this other surgery. No, we need to scan the thing and figure out what's going on. And only then do you bring in AI agents to do the work, right? You don't do the surgery until you have the diagnosis. We say that, prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. So here I'm saying, figure out, where is your business here? I don't care if you have one person or you have 100 people. What is the bottleneck? Where's the issue? When you solve your number one problem, your number two problem gets a promotion. That's why business is a 24/7 sort of game. I think it's fascinating. Like me as a math engineer guy, I see systems. It's like the green lines in the matrix. I see the woman in the red dress. Looking at any of these businesses, you can deconstruct into these same three components. Doesn't matter what kind of business it is. I'd love to hear. What do you guys think? I'm Dennis Yu. I'm your marketing mechanic, and I'll see you in the next episode.